Hi, he's Matty Man.
And he's Vanny Boy.
And you're listening to The Rusty Playground, a Gen X-centric podcast where we talk about everything involving the coolest generation.
And that is us.
Gen X, that's right. So what's going on, Matty?
Oh, well, it's a new year. And, just thinking that let's not think forward. Let's once again look backwards at the trauma of our childhood. And let's talk about Sid and Marty Krofft.
Oh, my God.
If any of you don't know who Sid and Marty Krofft is, why the hell are you listening to us?
Yeah, if you don't know who Sid and Marty Krofft is, just hang up. This is not for you.
Well, actually, we've tried it in a certain way to be educational, so let's try that. So,
yes, no, yeah, right.
We'll take a stab at it. But so millennials and Gen Z and Generation Alpha and Generation whatever we got going on anymore.
Yeah.
I don't remember us having so many generations split up before, but whatever. But it's all cool.
Yeah.
So these guys started off in sort of a vaudeville kind of circuit back in the 50s.
Yeah. I think it was 1945.
Yes. And they were actually Greek immigrants to Canada. And so their name is not actually Krofft, but Sid was the older one, and he started with the puppeteering and everything. And Marty was more into music and business. So that kind of dovetailed nicely into what they later were doing. But
they basically started off as puppeteers and kind of costume makers. And then I think one day they got they had a show in Canada, I think, and somehow they had someone in, I guess, Hanna-Barbera. Aren't they the ones that did Banana Splits?
Yes. Hanna-Barbera was, do we even need to go into them right now? I mean, it's a little bit before Gen X, but everyone in Gen X knows Hanna-Barbera.
They know Scooby-Doo,
the Flintstones.
For sure. Right, yeah. And basically the reason I bring that up is they designed the costumes for a group called the Banana Splits, which were like mascots at this theme park. And they did such a good job that they kind of were like, hey, we can just make our own thing. And they did.
Yes, and they did. And that was unleashed on the world.
It was.
Never the same. Never the same.
I was thinking about it today, and I was like, Gen X is unbreakable, partially because this is what we were subjected to as children.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing more surreal and somehow subtly frightening than any of these shows. But yet, you love them. You watch it, you're like, oh, yeah, God, yes. I remember that car they were driving around in. And
we loved them, or that's all we had. Folks.
Well, there's that.
We will try to convey to you through the episode, it sounds like we're joking about it, like twisting our minds as children, but we're not really joking. It really is a freakish drug. Whenever you think of like Salvador Dali giving his own shows, this is kind of what that would be. It's crazy.
Yeah. When people think of, oh, they're having a bad trip, this is the kind of stuff they're seeing.
Absolutely. This is what goes through their mind, that they scream in a closet for 8 hours.
Yes. Well, so let's back up just a tad here and go over, like, okay, we've already established they were involved with Hanna-Barbera with the Banana Splits.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after that, they had their first television series, H.R. Pufnstuf.
Yes.
And that is interesting because we'd already had in the early 60s, that folk revival, Puff the Magic Dragon.
Yes, this was 1969 is when this show came out.
Yeah, the show was in 69, but Puff the Magic Dragon, the song, was early 60s. And, we can talk all day long about, it was about marijuana, the Mary Jane, but we don't really know that. All we know is now, years later, there's a show with this ginormous puppet, this guy in a big suit, like a big mascot costume. Only it
reminds me of Mayor McCheese, honestly.
Yeah, it's like a Mayor yes, like that. Only imagine it's got these little spikes on it and whatnot. And I think it was supposed to actually be a dragon.
It's a dragon, yeah.
But not
although you would
not
never
the way,
guess that.
Yeah, not like the Western European look of a dragon.
No.
It'd be more like as if you took something from like an Asian sort of dragon, only you made him like a cartoon character. I don't know how to describe it. You just got to Google it because we can't show it to you. This is audio.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And even if it weren't audio, if we show you a picture of it, you're still not going to say, "Oh yeah, I see the dragon." No. I only knew this because 50 years later, I see something on TV about it. I was like, "Wait a minute, that was supposed to be a dragon?" I had no idea.
Yeah, me either. But be that as it may, he was around doing his thing. And I don't, and the thing is because it came out in 1969, I knew of it as a little kid, because it was still being shown reruns, but they didn't show that much of it. So I kind of, I don't really have that many memories of it. Only the character showed up on various variety shows in the later 70s. Was that one also on?
Well, there was lunch boxes. There was merch and stuff. Even
there was merch for sure.
Fifth grade.
But I don't really remember that particular show, actually watching the show.
I did see it because the gist of it is, folks, they had a thing called the Krofft Supershow. Yeah, Supershow.
Yes, that's getting a few years ahead.
Yeah, but to give you the gist of it, because we're talking about H.R. Puffin stuff, which is the second most famous, probably. Land of the Lost, probably most famous, but
yes.
H.R. Puffin stuff, we'll just run through that first, and then we'll jump into kind of their history. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good. It's, we got some kind of structure, but it's not too much, for God's sake.
No, not too much. But I did do a little bit of research because, things are a little hazy before I was born. And
yeah.
But
hanging out in utero, it was, I didn't have a whole lot to do.
Yeah. I mean, it was, just kind of that. See, we all shared that same TV show through our mother's wombs because they were watching it as adults.
Yeah. And not to mention they were
chain
smoking Pall Malls or whatever while they're watching.
Right. Yeah. That's why we were tripping. It was their nicotine high on the.
That's just the way it was. I mean, I'm not. What am I going to judge? I'm Gen X.
Yeah, I mean, my mom was told because my mom was 22. She was 21 when she was pregnant with me. She was told by her doctor to smoke at least half a pack of cigarettes a day to keep her weight down because my mom's like 5'1", and at the time, even pregnant, she was probably like 115 pounds. So
wow, yeah. Well, that's my mom was only 5'2". She was as tiny as can be as well.
Yeah. So I mean, we don't want you to we don't want your baby to be too big, kind of mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to believe, but that's how. And they, so obviously they knew back then that smoking had adverse effects on pregnant women. So,
and who knew how these things affect the gestation period and. Maybe you come out early, 2.5 months. Who's to say? I don't know.
Maybe some of us did.
Yeah, some of us did, but anyway.
But so anyway, it's 1969. The reason that I remember that I've seen H.R. Puffin stuff is because, as we'll discuss later, they had enough shows that they had like 15-minute shows. They played 2 at a time per. I don't know. It's not really a variety show, but it was just, the Super Show, and then it would have an episode of one show and an episode of another show. Rarely did they have like the 2-part episode in the same thing, and some of them got successful enough that they had their own 30-minute long show or whatever.
No, they didn't have any long developed, story arcs. No.
Well,
they didn't get to later where, H.R. Puffin stuff found his long lost aunt, and she had been abducted by aliens and whatnot. Right. And
this was other than Land of the Lost, there was these shows were absolute childish insanity is really the only way I can describe it. So
self-contained and just fun,
Yeah, just fun. Right. So H.R. Puffin stuff, they only made 17 episodes, and I guess I thought they had more than that, but that's probably because I just
kept using this character everywhere.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, certainly. It's in the Gen X zeitgeist. If you ask most people around our age or older, probably like first year Gen Xers basically would have to to be like 5 years old in order to watch it. But ask them, hey, what's HR Puff and stuff look like? And they can see him in their mind for sure, and they'll definitely think of some of the other characters. So
yeah. They'll think of some Mayor McCheese aberration in some way, shape, or form, and yellow and green and various bright colors. And don't forget the magical talking flute.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. So basically they created HR Puff and stuff for the World's Fair in 1968 rather, and they reused it. And initially it was named Luther, but later they changed it. I guess I have no idea. Literally his name is HR Puffin Stuff. And yes, he's a dragon, but this is 1969. This did not escape people what this could mean.
Yes.
Which got them in a lot of trouble. Well, not a lot of trouble, but just, they took some heat for it for sure.
Yes. So let me interject something. I saw back in 2013, San Diego Comic-Con. It was the last appearance by Sid and Marty. And they were talking about, the various shows, of course, but then it got to the point of the big question. What are you guys doing, And Sid, who's the older one, who was more of like into the puppetry and everything.
Right.
He was the one who said, I did inhale. Sorry. Marty was like, I didn't do anything. But Sid actually copped to it. And he said, yeah, I did stuff. But, they were creative way before that was in vogue.
Right,
so
right.
We'll leave it at that.
It wasn't 1945 when they're starting their business and they're smoking weed. That just wasn't happening.
Yeah, you'd have to be a jazz man for that.
Yeah.
You all know that.
Yeah, we all know that, man. You know what jazz is, and if you don't, I'll never be able to explain it. That kind of thing.
Yes.
So the gist of it was there's a 11-year-old boy named Jimmy, and he's running through the forest. It's literally this simplistic. He's running through the forest playing his flute, and he hears something. He comes across a real fancy-looking kind of fairy tale-ish sailboat, and it's implied in the song that he hears the ship talking to him, saying, "Come and sail with me, come and play with me," kind of thing. So he gets on the boat, and it actually belongs to Wilhelmina W. Witchy Poo, which I only really knew as Witchy Poo.
And everybody kind of just knew that part, I'm sure.
Yeah, and so that basically was a trick to lure Jimmy and his flute Freddie, which he didn't know was magical, to her castle on a place called Living Island, appropriately named because everything on the island is alive. Everything, signs, grass, houses, boats, clocks, cakes, everything basically they can interact with and is alive. And they usually do
every blade of grass.
Yeah, every time you step on them, they're like, "Oh, you broke my back," and stuff like that. And
I'm gonna sue you, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, Jimmy, what's your last name, Jimmy? I'm calling my lawyer. But and usually
the lawyer, by the way, is because I can't say it.
The lawyer
is a clod of dirt.
I'll get you everything. I'll take it for everything.
Yeah.
But so anyway,
graphite, stone, and graphite. We work for you.
And folks, it's funny because it literally could have happened.
Yes.
This was a crazy show. The voices, do you remember the voices that like the objects that could talk?
Didn't the flute have kind of like a gurgly kind of voice?
Yeah, Freddie, he was always like, "Come on, Jimmy! Come on, Jimmy, Jimmy!" He had a real high voice, and it was just a simple puppet where it's obviously foam, and it looks like a flute, and they have like something inside of it that they like a cable that makes it kind of bend for a second, so it make it look like
the part just kind of up and down, kind of.
Yeah. It's real.
Did he ever
cheap.
play the magic flute though?
He did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he played it.
Like I say, I have zero recall of the actual show except for watching the intro to it. And like I say, and I knew of it at the time. I probably watched some of it, but that's Lidsville did it for me. So
Yes, yes. I can let you lead on Lidsville, but to
okay.
wrap up this insanity, uh, Witchy Poo, I'd forgotten about this till I just looked stuff up for this episode, but Witchy Poo would break the fourth wall and tell little gags, things that it had a laugh track. So she'd like break the fourth wall. In one scene I saw, there's like two skeletons with her, and all it is clearly people dressed up in a black felt suit with cardboard cartoony bones on the front of the suit. So they're supposed to be, they're skeletons because she's a witch, and she yells at them, and they freak out, and even to the point where like the hats that they're wearing go flying up in the air. They have like a string. It's real weird, and she turns to the camera and goes, "With a castle this big, you wouldn't believe the servant problems." And there's like a laugh track, and I'm thinking, how and what? That's not even funny on your planet, Witchy Poo.
Yeah.
Why is there a laugh track? It was just,
yeah,
it was nutty, man.
Well, we could have an entire episode just about what the F is the deal with laugh tracks.
Yeah, because they don't make things better.
Yeah, they don't make things better, and they get used in situations of like, okay, there's no audience here. It's MASH. They're a mobile army surgical hospital.
Right.
Mobile.
Right. And MASH didn't even have a laugh track to start out with, remember? Did it have one to start out?
What it did is, I can't remember when the laugh track started, but they definitely had it in the earlier run of the show. And then by the time it got to be more of a dramedy, it was gone. But I never understood why it was there to begin with. And in cartoons,
she strangled the chicken. She strangled the chicken.
Yeah. It was a baby. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have to hand it to them on this show at least. I can't. I'm not gonna say they had like a great budget or anything, but they had like lots of props and lots of sets and costumes and moving parts and everything. So it wasn't a cheap show. It was.
Yeah, it was elaborate. I've seen. Yeah. Here's one thing that was really got their name out there ahead of time to start doing a show is they actually did some exhibit for the 1962 Seattle World's Fair and the 1964 New York World's Fair.
So they were out there.
They had a puppet show that featured over 200 marionettes and toured
Holy
extensively.
Crap. Wow.
So, yes. So that's what they had going for them in the 50s and 60s. Elaborate puppet shows.
Jeez, I mean, if you're talking about 200 puppets, I mean, not only is that, at least 100 people, but you have to, you can look at like the making of Team America and see just how incredibly hard it is to emote or anything with these puppets, right? And marionettes, and so you can't just grab grandma and tell her to come over there, and they've got strings, they'll get all hung up together. So yeah, it takes a lot of work.
Mima, what are you doing? Look, it's an inflection.
Mima, listen, this is going to trip every kid's mind up for the next 70 years. You got to do it for me, Mama, please.
Yeah.
They'll never forget it. They'll never remember it, but they'll never forget it either. It's trippy.
Well, you just start going all, artsy on her, like, look, why are you tarting this up? This is not this. You need this to be naked. Okay.
No, Mama, the puppet does not do the dirty dancing, no, what is that? Don't do that. Mama, oh, gross. Come on.
Yeah. You just berate your grandma.
Come on, put some spirit into it. These things are supposed to be high. Come on.
Yeah.
There were.
You got to go Kubrick on your grandma.
Kubrick. Mama, you put this gorilla costume on, and I'll find somebody to be the clown. So,
anywho,
Anywho, we're a little off base, but these brothers have created these shows. They've started to get things going in the late '60s, 69 in particular, and then through the '70s, even into the late '70s, they have shows that are coming out of varying qualities. And by varying quality, I mean some of
Johnny
them
and Marie.
Yeah, if that. If that. Some of them are extremely cheaply done, like almost there. There's one we'll talk about later where the set looks like it's just a blank wall, and they're standing next to it, and there's like a chair and a plant. You're like, this isn't even a set. What are they doing? So
this is like the Two Ferns interview show.
Yeah, right. And then they have Land of the Lost, which they definitely took more seriously, and we'll have a deeper dive here in a minute. But
yes,
those guys, took that seriously. So they had lots of sets and puppets and all kinds of stuff that they used for that. That definitely had a budget behind it for kids' TV at the time, anyway.
Yeah.
Now the humor that was used in these shows that we'll go on to. I mean, now there's a say, basically an interview I saw with Dan Aykroyd, and he was talking, or no, Chevy Chase. It was Chevy Chase, and he was talking about how Saturday Night Live, when they first started it, the sense of humor that they brought, which was like, this baby boomer college sensibility kind of thing. The people who were running like NBC at the time just couldn't even recognize it as humor, because they were like all these old Jewish vaudevillian guys, all from basically.
Exactly. They're all from like the world of like entertainment, know?
Yeah.
And they're not about trying to like mess with people's minds,
Yeah. No, they don't want to. They're not like, hey, let's just push the envelope of what we think is funny. Let's get Andy Kaufman out here to impersonate Elvis doing, his thing, and people will love it. They just couldn't get it. So, but they used, like, there was humor in a lot of these, like I said, with the exception of Land of the Lost. These were all basically comedies. Not all of them, I should say, but they have humor in them. And
yeah, they definitely had the humor. That was for like the adults watching with the kids, I'm sure.
Yeah, and by adults you mean definitely their World War II grandparents.
Yes,
because like they had several of the shows that I reviewed for this had this. Remember, Maxwell Smart had this thing where 86 would say, "Hey Max, maybe we can put the chair underneath that and use it as leverage," and Maxwell would be like, "We don't have time for that. Hey, I've got an idea. Let's use that chair as leverage." It basically steals her idea, and they're like, "Good idea." They use that a lot on these shows, like a whole lot. And let's take the bulbs out of the lights so the monster can't see us. I've got a better idea. Let's take the bulbs out of the lights so the monster can't see us. It's literally that. And you're given the laugh track, I guess.
It's kind of groan worthy, but at the same time, you're like, well, it's something.
it's something. Entertainment. Also, the actors in a lot of these, again, with the exception of Land of the Lost, really, they, especially the like bit part. So there's one we'll talk about called Bigfoot and Wild Boy, and in it they have a sheriff, and there's a country bumpkin that's helping the sheriff, and the guy plays it almost like Roscoe P. Coltrane. It makes him look like Orson Welles. I mean, he's like, "Oh, we gonna get him over there." It's way over the top. and the cop,
it's like, hey, it makes Slim Pickens look like he's from Connecticut.
Yeah, right. And they had actors that would in one of the in Wonder Bug that I watched. They had these two actors that were like, they're criminals, and the setup was that they were trying to rob this guy for jewelry, and they put an ad in the paper saying, "Hey, we're looking for 3 actors that can help us with this thing." So they think they're making a movie, but the kids are actually robbing the guy, so they don't they don't know that. And the guys that are the criminals, they're clearly like mob adjacent, I guess, but they're like, "Hey boss, what are we gonna do here?" I think we'll get these kids and we'll have them do what we want them to do. Capiche? You know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Just really ham-fisted, huh?
Oh, super ham fist. Like literally their fists are made of hams. Literally. It's that ham fisted.
Yeah.
And
if you were like bare knuckle brawl with them in the alley, you'd be quite greasy. I don't know. I know analogy.
Like that, none is needed. I literally was like, "Hey, boss, what we gonna do?" I mean, it's like as bottom.
We're gonna make him an
anything.
offer they can't refuse.
Right. You know, capiche? Hey, paisan, you're fungu. You know, it just was ridiculous. Yeah. But you know,
pasta primavera. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, spaghetti. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, as we touched on it comes across as druggy because a lot of the ideas that they have are just so abstract. It's not even necessarily that they're writing stuff. It's bad comedy, but you know, it's not like Laugh-In or something. Had a lot of that kind of thing.
It's not hip comedy. It's more like Borscht Belt.
Yes,
Henny Youngman kind of.
Yeah, guessing. I mean, I've heard Henny Youngman. I heard one of his stand-up things, and I probably missed 80% of the jokes because I was laughing so hard.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he is funny as hell, and he'll stand out there and tell literally like 100 jokes in a 5-minute time period. You're like, God, how does this guy even remember all these? But you know, they're good too.
I think I'm not really bashing any of that. I'm just saying it's of a style.
Yeah.
I think it's what they were going for.
Yeah, and the guys
kind of like, it's kind of the same thing as years later with the Star Wars holiday special.
Oh, right,
with like B. Arthur and Art Carney.
Yeah,
kind of doing that same sort of thing.
Yeah,
old school kind of.
It stands out.
Comedy.
It's definitely. I'm not sure that like younger millennials or Gen Z would even recognize that as humor. You know, they would, obviously they heard the jokes from Henny Youngman. I mean, you're going to laugh no matter who you are, but in the style that these shows were done, what these people who wrote it, who were probably born in like 1910, they think stuff is funny that's not funny. Yeah. And I don't mean like, oh, they're racist. I don't mean like that.
No, it's just certain things are just not after a while it's just not registers,
Well, it's like the biggest comedian in the world in the 50s was Sid Caesar. And everybody was like, oh my God, this guy's so funny, because he would come out and make funny faces and he'd talk in like different accents and stuff. People just ate it up. They ate it up. He was the funniest guy in the world. And you can go back and watch it now and be like, it's about as funny as clowns, It's like not really very funny.
Right.
I don't know how else to put it, but if you watch these, you will understand that it is a form of comedy that was so played out by the time it was 1969 to 78.
Exactly. It was already like not even cliche. It was, like you say, it was definitely played out. Because I don't really remember most of the jokes from that time period, because honestly, as a kid, I'm watching it more for the weird
bright
characters.
Colors and whatever. Right.
Yeah. It's only when you watch it later you go, oh, that's what my grandparents were experiencing.
I don't even know. I mean, some of these things just simply were not jokes. It's just things that they would say to the screen. Like I said, like Witchy Poo saying, with a castle that big, you're going to have all kinds of staffing problems. It wasn't even staffing; it was servant problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has the laugh track, and you're just like, oh, I'm sorry, was that a joke? I mean, like, I'm sorry, I didn't know that I was supposed to laugh at that. It's lame, but like you said, we were into it because the wild colors and the wild characters and even some of the music. Some of the shows had like, hey, we're in a band. Anyway, before we go on to start listing some of these shows that we remember or looked at, anything else you want to say going forward?
As far as about HR Puffin stuff?
No, about just this whole overall theme and genre that came from these men.
I would say you probably wouldn't have had a lot of Nickelodeon content if it hadn't been for these guys.
That's a very good point.
You know, if we're going to discuss legacy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, what's the one with not Bratz? What's the one with the kids? It's like the baby and the bald baby in the diaper, and so
it's the Rugrats.
Rugrats, yeah. I mean,
but I'm talking even before they had their weird Nicktoons lineup in their early '90s that included Ren and Stimpy. I'm talking just like some of their live action stuff they were doing.
Oh, I don't. You
can't do it on television, and you get slimed and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I never even thought of it till now, but yeah. I mean, if you're familiar with this, you can definitely see where some of those creatives were familiar with this as well. So
right. And that's what I'm saying. So on some of the live action children's programming, some of the more offbeat, zany stuff, I think, is in the spirit of what the Krofts were doing.
So
that's what I have to say. So let's talk about some shows.
Yes, let's talk about some shows, because
we ain't getting any younger.
The measure of these men will come through in all of this stuff because it's insane. So they're Wonderbug. Do you remember Wonderbug?
Yes, I remember Wonderbug. But before we talk about Wonderbug, I was going to get back to something you mentioned as far as the Krofft Supershow.
Right.
That came out in the later 70s, 76 to 78, and it was like an anthology show. And the framework was the band, which was Captain Cool and the Kongs.
Yes, they had their own show, didn't they?
That was, I don't know, they didn't really have their own program on here, but they did all the wraparound sketches. So they had some stuff, and then they'd say, oh no, here's a show, and they would show you Dr. Shrinker.
Wow.
Or Electra Woman and Dinah Girl. Or Wonderbug, Magic Mongo, Bigfoot and Wild Boy.
I couldn't even remember that it was set up that way. I just remember that it was more than one show at a time. So that's what they were like for the most part. They were
I think it was on. I think it was like on for an hour. They'd have some bits and some skits that they would do, and then they would show another one of these 15-minute shows.
Wow.
And the lineup changed over the 2 years. I remember that much. Like at one point, I think it was the second season where they introduced Bigfoot and Wild Boy, but that's where all those shows came. But before they got to that anthology format,
right,
they just had the standalone shows. If we want to do this chronologically, after HR Puff and stuff, they had the Bugaloos. Do you remember anything about that one?
I hated the damn Bugaloos. The Bugaloos, we're in the air and everywhere. We're flying high, flying free as a fucking breeze, or whatever it was.
Well,
I hate it. Oh, yes. And Martha Ray, wasn't she the one who played? She was Witchy Poo as well, right?
Don't think. No, she wasn't Witchy Poo. She was the evil Benita Bazaar.
Was that the one in the Bugaloos?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I just
the only reason I know that is because I looked it up, and it's basically the little synopsis was a musical fantasy series about a group of insect-like musicians who live in a magical forest and face off against the evil Benita Bazaar. Of which I have no recall of this one. No,
I kept thinking that she was Witchy Poo. I guess because did they look the same?
I don't know, because like I say, I know of the show title, but I got nothing on that one. So I think that's one I'm going to definitely try to catch up on. I should have at least watched one in preparation of this, but
Oh my God, dude, it's so damn horrible because whenever I would come home from school, whatever, it was like 4th or 5th grade, whatever it was, and this would come on after school. If the Bugaloos came on, if it wasn't a cathode TV with a 8-inch thick glass, I probably would have cracked the thing a bunch of times because I hated it.
You would have done an Elvis.
I would have done an Elvis if I had a gun. I'm sure we had guns, but I didn't have one.
Yeah,
because I was in 4th grade.
Can you imagine? How much you're like trying to not get caught doing anything.
Oh God!
I
hope they don't notice that, boy. I hope they don't notice I ate some of the ice cream. I could get in trouble. Oh, also, I shot the television out.
Yeah. I know you're going to get mad, but please.
I know you're going to get mad. Oh, yeah. They pistol whip me. You want to play with guns? Play with this.
Yeah. Shove it right in your mouth. What do you think about it now?
You're like Ray Liotta Goodfellas when he hears that the guy across the street was rough with her or whatever, and he goes puts the muzzle of the gun right in the guy's mouth. Like, don't you ever mess with Karen, you know?
Yeah,
that's what they did to me.
Exactly. Like every week, like, whoops, I shot another one. I can't help it. This damn bugaloos.
I just turn to the screen and go, "Hey, with guns, you know." And then hear the laugh track in my mind.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh no. I killed the neighbor's dog.
So moving on from that one, unless you wanted to add anything, any particular moment from the Bugaloos.
No.
Here's the one that started it for me. Lidsville.
Yeah.
That was the one that had, it's a bizarre show about a boy who falls into a magical world inhabited by talking hats. Now, that's just the tip of it, because really it's, they give you they give you the whole plot point in the show, in the song, and in the beginning of the show. So normal looking magic guy, normal looking Charles Nelson Riley.
No. You mean human Charles Nelson Riley?
Yeah. Normal looking Charles Nelson Riley actor is the magician during the opening number in the show.
Yeah, I remember now.
Just does that. Then you see the kid, who is played by Butch Patrick, who was in the Munsters.
Yeah, he was Eddie Munster. Yeah.
Yes, he was Eddie Munster. This is what he was doing.
He still is Eddie Munster. If you ever go to, he still does the, like Comic-Con circuit and stuff.
I know. We just saw him at, I didn't stop at his booth because I was like, I don't know what to say. But he was at GalaxyCon Raleigh. He was there for that one. Anywho, so
you should have gone up to him and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Patrick, please don't turn into a werewolf when I'm here. I'm afraid of werewolves." He'd be like, okay, security."
Yeah.
Poor guy. In some ways I feel bad.
I'll just go up to him. What was it like working with Charles Nelson Riley? Did he give you any pointers?
Oh, that'd be funny, because he apparently hated working on, but this is Butch Patrick. He hated working on Lidsville, whereas Charles Nelson Riley loved it. He thought it was, he did have to sit in the makeup chair, and he had, it was like his costume was like, I think he said it was wool on wool on wool. The way they did it was they put like microphones around just to catch the dialogue from the hats. So they didn't like do that in post, which is what you would normally do. This guy, a guy's wearing a thing, a mask over his head, and this is kind of what he sounds like, and these are like thick foam and stuff, and they're inside of it. And in order to hear them, they have to turn the air conditioner off. So like all those lights and stuff, and they're in this foam and wool. It was apparently pretty tough for them. People, it was tough. It was tough for them. And then also the way they shot it was they had like 5 locations or whatever, 5 sets, and they'd set it up in the same spot. So they'd set like, okay, we've got set number 1 here, and we've got 15 episodes to do. And we're going to shoot all the scenes in this place, in this location, on this set. And then when we're done, we'll tear it down and put the next set up and do that. Yeah, so the actors
they didn't have enough room to have like 5 separate sets. They had to God.
Yeah. So not only that, but when they did it, it was it was out of sync. So they didn't even know at all what was going on and what they were doing, other than hey, I'm.
Well, then you may as well have dropped some acid.
Might as well.
It doesn't make any damn sense anyway. And usually as an actor, you're so disjointed, you don't even know how it's all going to be put together.
And what's funny is that, that you could hear the Lidsville and be like, God, what trippy, what was this guy on? But really, this one's pretty innocent. One of the brothers he had a bunch of hats. It was like he just liked hats. So he had a whole bunch of a big collection. And one day he was thinking, I wonder what it would be like if all these things had their own lives. Like if they could talk, what would they be? And he started thinking about, the top hat would be fancy and, that kind of thing. So that's where the gist of this came from. It wasn't like he was getting baked or something.
So backing up, Butch Patrick, teenager, wonders, what's the deal? I'm going to go backstage after the magic show, because that's what you do, trespass.
Right. Yeah.
And he finds the hat, and then for whatever reason, the hat just
the magician's
grows.
hat, right?
Yeah, the magician's top hat. It just, unsupervised, just sitting around, and it grows to a massive size. He looks over the rim, falls in, and it turns out that takes you to another dimension where it's all these anamorphic, hats. They got eyes. Sounds plausible. Shit. Yeah, they got mouths and eyes, and I don't know if they have organs. I don't want to know.
Well, they got at least one organ.
Yes.
That has its own lid.
Yeah, and then
they're European.
And then the Charles Nelson Riley, is no longer looking like a human. He looks like something out of like a nightmare.
Yeah, he's green. Everything on him is like green.
He's like green with the red Van Dyke beard and bald head, and the way he zooms into the camera on his flying hat.
Yeah, I mean he's creepy in it. But,
it's hard to watch that intro when he appears, like even now.
Yeah, it was that was Charles Nelson Riley's thing. So whenever he did that with this character, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. He's Charles Nelson Riley. Even though he looks scary as hell.
Yeah. So even though he looks scary, but at the same time, he's goofy. And what was the character's name? What was the deal?
Horatio J. Hoodoo.
Ah, that's right. Hoodoo. He was up to no good. We know that.
Yeah, he was a bad guy.
He was constantly foiled. And that ran for how many episodes? Probably about 17.
17 episodes, and they were 25 minutes.
I don't know why they settled on 17 episodes, but they did that with this series as well. So, I mean, I wouldn't have really remembered this one when it was originally aired, but of course, once again, reruns. I think that one got, in our area, it was just played more than others, Yeah,
because I remember some of these from lunchboxes and shirts more than I did from watching them.
Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was the next one.
Come on, Siggy! I loved Sigmund and the Sea Monster. Loved it. Do you remember the theme song?
I don't remember the theme song. I barely remember anything about this one. I mean, I know some of it, but I mean, you gonna sing it for me?
Yes. Has he lost his mind? No, that's not it. That's the wrong one.
Oh, whoopsie.
Sigmund and
the show about two boys who befriend a friendly sea monster named Sigmund, who is constantly trying to avoid his mean-spirited brothers.
Sigmund, you are a rotten sea monster.
Sigmund, you're through.
Scram! Get out of here.
There's nothing like a day out on the beach when all it does is rain. You need somebody else to make the sun come out again. When you find that special someone you never expected to, it'll make you believe in magic. It could change your life for you. Talk about friends, knocking at your door, friends. That's what friends are for, friends. If you're young or old, everybody needs friends.
Oh, okay, I hear it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's familiar.
So
yes. You'll put that in and make it sound good, won't you? You'll
yeah. Why not?
Yeah, make it nice.
Yeah. So but every one of these shows, I mean, they laid it out there, man. They laid it right out what's going to happen, what the show's about. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about what you're about to watch. It was here's the origin story.
It's almost like, once again, like grandparents. What is this show about?
Yeah,
it's like we'll tell you that right now.
Listen to a story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer. It tells you the whole thing. This is the story.
Yeah, like
of a lovely lady.
And like Gilligan's Island. Every show back then, you had to have the little bit that like lets you in. That way, if you were a late comer to the show, you'll know what it's about.
Yep, you will know exactly what
I
it's
feel like
about.
You wouldn't know anyway with Gilligan's Island.
Right.
It's an island of implausibility, but that's okay.
To me, that's one of the greatest shows that's ever existed.
Yeah.
In 1,000 years, you could show that to someone and they would be able to laugh and get it. Even if they didn't understand anything about it, they would say, oh, haha, I see. It's almost like a Sergio Aragonés drawing that he would do in Mad Magazine and the little in the margins.
Yeah.
It tells a quick little story about, it's very open like that. I love that show. We'll do a whole thing about that.
Yeah, we'll do one about that. And it's not only because it's exactly Gen X, but I think it is really Gen X because that was ubiquitous, like in our childhood. I mean, it was always on reruns.
Always on. We were raised by Gilligan's Island.
Yes. That and Get Smart for me. But anyway.
Oh, you lucky bastard.
Yeah,
we only got
Segment
that
in the Sea Monsters.
Yeah. These shows are so bad we can barely keep on track here. So
yeah, we got to talk about other shows,
better shows that can suck too, but they don't suck as much as this one. So
let's just cut to the chase and get to the really good one, Land of the Lost.
All right. Well, wait, no, because some of them are really stupid and deserve.
I know, but I'm just going in chronological.
Oh, okay.
So don't worry, we're going to get to all those Dr. Shrinkers and whatnot. But Land of the Lost was the one that was played straight sci-fi,
very straight.
And the only thing that really hampered it was the effects. If it wasn't for that, and knowing it's the same cave set, and they shoved the toothpick, or whatever, it looks like a toothpick going in the T-Rex's mouth every week.
Right.
They have to do that every episode. I think they even nicknamed the dinosaur after a while, but
yeah, they had nicknames for lots of them. They had Grumpy, and they had Alice, which was an Allosaurus, and they had Dopey, which was a Brachiosaurus or a Brontosaurus, if you will. And
there was a cut episode of Land of the Lost. It was one where they were actually mourning the loss of the T-Rex because he got an abscess after so many times poking in the roof of its mouth with that fucking.
I mean, you think at some point it would learn, even if its brain was the size of a walnut, right?
Yeah. They actually did feel bad for him after that. Yeah, I think it was who was the daughter? Holly, yeah. She was the one who administered the hemlock to euthanize him.
Liberal, let it die. All right, so I'll do the. Here's the lyrics to the theme song real quick.
Okay.
So it literally sets up the entire plot, people.
Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition met the greatest earthquake ever known. High on the rapids, it struck their tiny raft and plunged them down 1,000 feet below to the land of the lost.
It was like Maddie said, it was taken seriously. They were not hamming it up like all the rest of their shows. They weren't like, making yucks over in the corner and having a laugh track.
At the camera and whatnot.
No. This is a high concept kind of science fiction show, and it's
they had several writers, sci-fi writers, contributed the episodes. Some written Star Trek episodes and whatnot.
Yeah. DC Fontana in particular, even
Walter Koenig.
And Larry Niven. There's a whole bunch of them, and I looked them up, and most of them I remembered as a Star Trek fan, like from the original show, like seeing their names on the front. These people were not like I said, they weren't the same kind of and then we're going to fall down the stairs kind of people. This was let's just try to be as serious about this concept as we can. The downside, as Maddie said, is that it's, really, they didn't have a lot of money. What they did have, they used, obviously, but it wasn't like, they tried to make as many sets as they could. And a lot of times it was, I guess, green screen. And
green screen. That was the early years of green screen.
Yeah. So when they would walk from one side of this crescent, I don't know what it was. It was like a forever drop, I guess. They would walk across this path that went across it, and you could it was obvious that they'd like had a small set and then took cheap video of it and they just put that on the background. Now they did have like lots of sets that had palm fronds and that kind of thing around, and they had props that were like big strawberries and things like that, like because it was sort of sort of played off the whole everything in the past was bigger. The dinosaur and the time of the dinosaurs, the fruit was bigger, the everything was bigger, kind of thing.
But the really cool part about this show was that it turned out to be some kind of interdimensional, where like things from different things in the past ended up collected here.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm trying to think of a good example. Was it H.G. Wells who did this story where they go to the center of the earth and it's got dinosaurs and whatnot?
Yeah, I think it was Jules Verne who did Journey to the Center of the Earth.
But basically it's not done exactly like, that's how dinosaurs live. This is literally like some sort of between worlds.
Yeah, they were able to look into what they called a time doorway, which would like flash things up on this screen, basically. So it'd be supposed to be like a doorway, and it would go real fast from place to place to place to place, time to time, so forth. So if they jumped out, they most likely were never going to be back on Earth at their right time. It was all happening so fast. They were trying to figure out, how do we control this? Turns out, like you said, it's not Earth. They called it an enigmatic zone, and the place and time is unknown. So it's like you said, an in-between world kind of thing.
Right. It's kind of like this nexus. It's between, and also, well, let's talk about those slee stacks. Oh my God.
They were scary back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, sure, you can go, okay, I know it's a suit, but at the same time, still scary as crap. And then the fact that they're dormant and then they would all wake up. Yeah.
In researching this, I learned something that I did not know, and this does not improve them for me. So they were, the slee stacks folks, they looked like humanoid lizards, basically. They had like their claws, they had like 3 sharp hoof claw kind of things, and they had these massive eyes and bones across. They were like green and yellow. They had like a bone mohawk kind of thing. It wasn't a mohawk, it was just like, like a lizard. And
yeah, like the ridge on their head.
And they're basically brainless drone type things. We find out later that they're actually more like insects on Earth than they are lizards, which does not make me like them that much more.
Oh, exactly. But also there was another slee stack who made an appearance later on the show.
Yep. Enoch was his name.
And he was the one wearing like the gold lame and everything. Wasn't he even gold? Like he had a different color and everything. The others were green.
Yeah. He's like a golden yellow kind of
Was
character.
he supposed to be further in the future or further in the past from the others?
Well, so they befriend this guy Enoch, who's a slee stack, but like Maddie said, he's orange and gold or whatever.
And he's a civilized one. He can communicate with them.
Yeah, he can talk to and sort of control the slee stacks, tell them what to do. He can get him, but whenever the slee stacks are chasing any of the kids or whatever, he can jump in between them and they won't hurt him. But he can kind of stop them for a while or whatever while they escape.
So what was his deal?
He also was able to control, he kind of knew how to control the pylons that were spread around that we'll discuss in a second. And he was able to, the time doorway or portal or whatever it was, he could get it going, but he couldn't stop on their specific time. But his thing was throughout that series, he talks about the slee stacks as, his ancestors, my ancestors from long ago, and we evolved, blah, blah, blah. And you find out later on, he finds out and tells them that he learns that they're actually his descendants. Mm-hmm. So they're his race, instead of going from primitive to smart, also at some point goes back the other way. So the slee stacks are the future version of his kind.
Yes,
and it was a pretty good
probably
twist.
Went through a cataclysm or whatever, so that was kind of a downer.
Yeah, because I liked Enoch or Enoch or whatever his name. Enoch is what it was, not Enoch. That was a real guy. But Enoch, and he was, he was kind to him. He was trying to find his way back to wherever he came from. This was trippy. So the pylons that I mentioned, they were around. They had no doors unless you I don't know if you had. Usually they had like a little thing that had fallen off of it, like a little metal rock type of thing, and they put it at the top, and when they did, it would open the door. And then inside of it, if you remember, it had what looked like a kind of a primitive looking some kind of stand, and inside of it had all these rocks with these different lights that come up through them. So the rocks look like gems or like lit gems.
Oh
from the
yeah, I
inside.
remember this now. Yes.
And so they could move them. And if they move them, like the first time that they were able to get in it, Will and Holly, the two kids, they're like, "Hey, let's pick this up. Let's look at this." And then when they pick it up, it shuts the door and like sends them to a different time or whatever. And they eventually figure out, hey, if you move this, it changes from day to night. If you move this, it doesn't change day to night. It speeds you up through time. And if you move this one, you can teleport to another one, but it doesn't always work because they sometimes get it wrong. It was pretty trippy. It's very, like I said, very high concept.
That one I think was their biggest show.
Yeah.
I mean, by then they had hit the critical mass. I mean, lunchboxes, merchandise.
Yeah, which led to a serious problem with something that went on. So this was on for 3 seasons. They made 43 episodes of this show. But like you said, it got popular, ubiquitous. You'd see him on all kinds of merchandise everywhere. Well, Spencer Milligan is the guy who played Rick, the dad, Rick Marshall. And he saw his image everywhere. And he's like, hey, I'm not really getting anything for all this. I'm not getting enough for it. So I'm gonna stay out until you pay me what I deserve. And he did deserve it because they're using his image on everything. Yes. And they're like, no. So
he just writes you out, write him out of the episode.
Yeah, he wasn't even in the episode that he was written out. So when they went to shoot it, they had that at the very beginning. You see kind of the back of Rick
where he's jumping through the portal.
While he's talking to the kids, and they go, and that was like a body double, not a body double, somebody there who also had curly hair. And then you never see his face, and he walks off screen, and then he jumps or falls through the time portal, and when he does, it takes him back to his regular time. But they find out that their uncle comes through. Jack was his name. He comes through the time thing, and
we find out, like, you know, if one leaves, somebody else has to enter.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we find out?
Yeah. If you can't leave unless someone else enters. And so it was very obvious that, like, hey, what happened to him? I mean, it was so abrupt. It was literally in the first 3 minutes of the show of episode 1 of season 3. You know, they just brought in a new guy.
They should have done that with Three's Company. Had her jump through a portal.
Yeah. Jumping wasn't bad. They did that a lot too. You'd see the girls dancing and tits bouncing everywhere.
Yeah.
Hey, it was the 70s, folks.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not complaining.
They should all end up doing that. And then somebody else shows up looking for, I don't know. It's like they're raft. And they're.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. So, in order for Marshall, Will, and Holly to leave, Jack, Susie, and what was the brunette? What was her name?
Oh, Janet. They have to come in and have their hijinks in the land of the lost. Right.
Jack was a klutz. He'd get eaten in like 20 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, so once that was a huge success, right as that was wrapping up, that's when they, I think, came up with their idea of, we've got all these other shows we could do, but rather than have to like worry about a full 30 minutes, let's have these shorter, shows, and we'll have this wraparound feature, which actually was, that when you see the Krofft Supershow, which is what I'm getting at,
right?
They actually, that footage of them running around is at the World of Krofft. It was an amusement park that had been made at the next to the Omni Coliseum in Atlanta.
I saw an interview with the guy that was part of that, and he said that what really it killed it. Its location killed it because at the time, word was getting out about crime in Atlanta. And where it was right next to a bus station or something. So there was like, winos.
The thing was, is this whole project where that was all built was to bring the area up. It was like a $20 million, in its day, it was a $20 million multi-use project. And that's before people were, throwing out multi-use like they do now.
Wow.
It was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
But the bitch of it was, you've got this amusement park, but then you've also got office space in there. And it's like noisy as shit.
Right. All right, I've got to do my taxes.
Yeah. Okay, everyone here for the board meeting? Rumble, rumble.
I just got a call that my mother died.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, lots of things. But anyway, so you see that. So it's kind of like, hey, we'll have a show where we can have all these little miniature, of varying lengths being played. We'll also be plugging our new amusement park.
Right.
And that is Krofft Supershow with their, and what was done in so many cartoons and shows back then. You have to have the fake band.
Yes.
And only it's the 70s, it's the late 70s. So, they're all like as 70s as you can look.
Yeah, they're like, the music was kind of like a mix of Donnie and Marie and the Monkees.
And you know why? Because the Osmonds wrote the music.
Oh, did they? Well,
yes.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yes, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, that theme song, there's a little bit of like, there's some crunch on the guitar here and there. A little bit of, I don't know what they were using for like that fuzz tone, but it was works.
I like Slayer's version better.
Yeah, well. But anyway, so once they had that concept, these are the shows you got.
Yes, these were the kind of shows they would put in there. But I didn't get to finish.
I'm sorry. You wanted to talk more? Oh.
Just about one part of that I cannot leave out.
Okay.
Well, two things actually I can't leave out. One is the Pakuni, which were basically these monkey men kind of
Oh,
people.
yes.
Yeah, that lived there. The Pakuni. And they had, we only ever really saw a mom and a dad and a kid. The kid's name was Chaka. You remember Chaka?
Yes, I remember Chaka.
And he like had a perpetual broken leg. But anyway, the Pakuni rather,
they must have had like really low bone density or something.
Yeah, something about them. But they would run from the humans whenever they saw them, or they try to chase them off by throwing sticks. They were aggressive. But something fell on Chaka, and they fixed his leg. His leg broke. They made a splint for it and stuff, and then. So Chaka became their friend, even though the parents never really do. They don't become friends, but they'll come up and get Chaka with them and stuff. So they know that they are together, so they don't mind it, I guess. But and then it had one of the scariest things when I was a kid. An episode that freaked me out and scared the crap out of me. And it'd be interesting to see if you remember this, but they're in a pylon and they mess with the lights or whatever, and it sends them to like some other dimension. It's like dark. They're like in space, literally nothing but black space. And actually, I think you can see stars and stuff out there. And then some of the stars move, and it's like a guy who has lights on his body, but he's like some kind of interdimensional being that's made of stars and stuff. Do you remember that?
Oh, I don't remember that one. But he later made an appearance in the Sledgehammer video.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, because remember at the end, it's like the body is walking around. It's got the stars. Anyway.
Yeah. Whenever I see that, whenever I saw that video, I thought of that. I was like, man, that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's pretty silly and tame. But anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on to some of the shows.
Yes,
we'll try to burn.
So here's the shows, at least all the ones that I can remember, or from what I saw clips of.
Right.
So Dr. Shrinker, I remember that one quite a bit. That was the one where you've got the madman with an evil mind.
Yes, mad scientist. He has a shrink ray. Yeah,
he has a shrink ray, and he's got Billy Barty there, who was in everything back then.
Yeah,
he was
Billy Barty. He's the dwarf. Other than Peter Dinklage, or I should say until Peter Dinklage, Billy Barty was definitely the most famous dwarf in the world, without a doubt.
And then there was Warwick Davis, and then there was, but he was more always in costumes, so you didn't really,
Billy Barty was, his face was seen almost all the time.
Yeah, he was the big one. But anyway, so he's on this. Usually it's the three kids.
Yep, as usual.
They crash land on this mad scientist island, and he shrinks them, and then every week it's like running from something, and I guess trying to figure out how they're gonna get back to normal size.
Yeah, so they do things like run through obviously the set was made where, you know, they were barely taller than cut grass. Basically, they're really like 3 inches tall or something. If that 6 inches, I think it was. The acting on this show, even for Sid and Marty Krofft, is the worst. It's absolutely the worst. The guy who plays the Dr. Shrinker,
Dr. Shrinker himself,
I mean, he is mugging beyond. I mean, you can't even watch it now. You'd be like, dude, come on.
It's
really?
like my description of the show is a ham and a little person make 3 teenagers littler.
Yeah, that's basically it. And they have in this. They also have that same thing. I think I mentioned earlier where they'll like Maxwell Smart, where, you know, Dr. Shrinker will be like, you know, what are we going to do about the kids? And Hugo will say, hey, well, maybe we can get the kids and trap them in a bottle. And Dr. Shrinker will be like, no, we don't have time for that. Hey, let's capture the kids in a bottle or whatever. And it's like, he'll actually literally look at the camera and go, that sounds familiar. I mean, God.
Yeah. Now, the next one was probably my favorite, Electro Woman and Dyna Girl.
All right. Why was it your favorite?
Why was it my favorite? Because it was
thought they were hot.
Yeah. I mean, well, also, I mean, that, and also it's got the best theme song of all of them.
Electro woman and Dyna girl, fighting all evil deeds. Each writes for a magazine, hiding the life she leads. Electro woman and Dyna girl. Summon to Electra, face by Electra, come they wear. Laurie and Judy dare to face any criminal anywhere.
All right, sorry, what was it you said?
So, a live-action superhero series featuring 2 female crime fighters who totally don't give a shit about secret identities.
That's basically it. I mean, you'd have to be a fool not to know who they are.
It was just, the reason I think I enjoyed it also was because, hey, I was already like a huge like Batman from the TV show fan. So it was like anything like that was already going to be like, okay. But even then I knew like this is like basement budget, you know?
Yeah. Like super low budget.
And now their guy who was always working on their stuff, the techie guy, I know he was a voice actor.
I don't even remember that.
You didn't look him up, but he had that really deep, gravelly voice. Was it everything back then? But anyhow, so schlocky. But that was the next one. Wonderbug was a ripoff. It was
out even back then. I remember thinking, you know, it's cool that the chicks have their own thing, because you know they also had, well, not even at this point, I don't think, Wonder Woman, but you know, everybody watched Wonder Woman, so they didn't really have their own girl things, you know. So
yeah. And I just, like I say, for me, it was just like, I wasn't even thinking about like, oh, this is going to be a good thing, whatever. I just was like, I love it.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
it's not something that my parents watch. I love it.
Yeah. And then Wonderbug was the next one, which was a ripoff of Speed Buggy, only with a moving foam mouth on the car.
Yes.
That's what I read.
Sitting in a junkyard waiting to be grown up is a pile of cars. Looking for an old car, found a funny flat car, let's make him ours. Found a magic horn, a new car was born, the toughest little nothing, Wonderbug.
These were 15 minutes long, and they had 22 episodes, which I was stunned about. But even then, man, I was like, you guys are just totally ripping off Speed Buggy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was insulted. As a child, I was insulted, like 7 years old.
It's almost like I just felt like I can't watch both. I can't do that.
Yeah. You know, so you got these. It's literally, it says it in the song that you have these teens, quote unquote. They're probably in their early 30s. But
once again, what was it, 3 of them? Why is it always 3 teens? You know,
I don't know. But one of the things funny about about these guys is that so they had the guy, the I guess leader, the Harry Potter of the group, and then they had the Hermione of the group, and she was the one that was coming up with the ideas, and she'd be like, "Hey, let's use the same trick that the bad guys used on us to get the bad guys. We don't have time for that. Wait, I know. Let's use the same trick that they used on us." I mean, it was another one they did. They used that gag everywhere, and which I could never. So
I don't have much recall of that one because I think it's just the way the mouth would move on the front of the car. I'm like, I don't know about this.
Right. Yeah.
Now the next one I saw the clip was. I'm sorry.
Yeah, a few little
rushing
details.
Through things.
Yep, a few little details.
Okay, go ahead.
So
you get to shine now.
The name of the car. So they go into a junkyard looking for a car. I don't know why you would go to a junkyard to look for a car, but anyway, they go there and they find a.
Well, that's because they're teens. Yeah. They don't have a lot of money. They look like they're 30 and they don't have money. So that's what you do.
So they want to go buy something that you're going to have to put a whole lot of money into to make even run. But so they find this dune buggy and
that's because that was a huge craze at the time.
Yeah, big time.
The dune buggy thing, yes.
Yeah, and so they find that and they're like, it's a piece of junk, and they call it schlep. So it's schlep when it's its normal thing. Whether it's schlep or it's wonderbug, it has articulating, its fenders will go up and down to like a mouth to talk, and its eyes will blink.
That's
and all this
no,
stuff.
No, that's uncanny valley. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And now there's the guy that's the Ron Weasley dude. Basically, he's this black guy that was on Happy Days, and he played a drummer on Happy Days. Whenever they had a band, he was the guy that did that.
Because he was probably a drummer.
I guess so. So he's like the jiviest jiver to ever jive, basically. And he repeats himself all the time. So whereas they do their gag where she has the idea and he repeats it, he'll say things like, they'll be like, "Oh, this is bad." He'd be like, "It ain't bad. It's bad." I mean, it was terrible. God. Well, that guy he is of note whenever I see him because he ended up doing porn. So he was on Happy Days and stuff. And then next thing you know, he's doing porn. And it's like, I guess I'm assuming for drugs. Why else would you do porn, right? But
it was the 70s.
Yeah.
And he was a drummer.
True. Well, maybe he loved it. I don't know. But
I don't know. Whatever.
He was a groovy cat, man. He was too groovy, actually. It was like a terrible ripoff of J.J. Walker. Terrible ripoff of J.J.
Yeah.
So anyway, going on to the next one, Maddie. Sorry.
So the next one is, I'm just going to describe it. I saw the clip. I don't remember it. I'm sure I just said this one's not for me, but there was this one where teenagers find a genie in a bottle at the beach, and it's once again 3 teenagers.
Yeah.
And then I wrote mayhem ensues, and then I wrote I don't remember this one because I'm assuming mayhem ensues because it's a genie in a bottle.
Yes.
They're gonna screw up a wish every time.
You know what? I bet you they ripped that off from what was the one that was the genie, the cartoon?
There was a Hanna-Barbera with a genie.
Yeah, he's like Yapple Dapple.
Yes. Once again, ripping off Hanna-Barbera. How did they get away with that?
I don't know, but I mean,
one company with like low production values sues the other one.
Right. Well, compared to what Sid and Marty Krofft had. I mean, the Hanna-Barbera group was like freaking Sony.
Yeah. Oh, but here's the last one. Now, this is the one that we always talk about. We talked about earlier. Bigfoot and Wild Boy.
Yes.
Out of the great Northwest comes the legendary Bigfoot, who 8 years ago saved a young child lost in the vast wilderness and raised that child until he grew up to be Wild Boy.
Now, before we get into anything on it, let me read this. Bigfoot raises a little boy to adulthood. Somehow, he doesn't sound like Nell. That's what I wrote.
So that's a good breakdown of basically of what this Bigfoot and Wild Boy show was.
It's like this kid is raised by a Sasquatch, and he's not like feral
for 8 years.
For 8 years, yes,
and he can speak English and Bigfoot. So like he'll say, say if a sheriff's coming and over the mountain and Wild Boy will be like, Bigfoot, Otukachakumba. And, and he walks off. So he can speak both Bigfoot and English. And it just makes me wonder, okay, now he saved him as a child 8 years ago. That's in the story. That's what it says in the theme song.
Yeah, because once again, they love giving you the synopsis of the show in the intro song.
Right. And he's wild boy, not wild man.
Yeah,
right.
Even though now he's an adult.
Yeah,
he clearly looks like an adult.
Well, he looks like he's, let's say, 22. Let's just be nice.
Yeah.
22.
He looks like a young adult.
So I guess he
not
would
a teenager,
have
not a
spoke
boy.
English since he was, he would be 16 basically when that happened, right? So he would speak English. Could he have spoke English? I mean, why? He also would have been raised for 16 years amongst civilization. So why would he go to wearing Tarzan's outfit?
Yeah.
And swinging from trees and stuff? Wouldn't he be like, hey, I'm just going to walk over there, man,
Well, the way they make it sound like as if he's still a boy, like he's a teenager, makes you think like he was a little small child. But even then, it's like how he would have still been able to speak. So maybe that gets around that one. But if he's 8.
Okay,
fine. But it doesn't get really bastardized after a while. You get no one else to really talk to in English.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you sound like what's her name from Mahey. What was that movie? With
that's what I say. Somehow he doesn't sound like Nell.
Nell, yeah. Sorry. I was laughing in my own mind. Now this show was heavily influenced by the 2-part $6 Million Man episode that we talked about. Bigfoot.
They were definitely hitting on that. Bigfoot was in everything. It was huge.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's weird to say that to knowing that somebody who's like Gen Z, someone who's, let's just say 18 years old, and to say, oh yeah, there was a Bigfoot craze. That wouldn't really do justice to what Bigfoot became like. Yeah,
there were like movies. There were these pseudo documentaries.
Yeah,
I'll put like big air quotes documentaries.
Right, like In Search of and whatever.
And we were constantly seeing like another, like even in the 90s, you're still seeing like In Search of Bigfoot.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, every so often you'll still see these damn
people that believe in Bigfoot, Matt. Can you believe
that? I know. It's still going on, even though they've shown repeatedly this person had a plaster cast feet and he purposely left these.
Yes, the person who wore the plaster calf of this 28-inch long foot was actually 163 pounds.
Yeah.
But anyway, whatever. So they were
forensic evidence shows that the person could not have been any larger than this, depending on like the indentation in the ground.
Right. I saw a whole thing recently on this guy was like going over, the famous footage of Bigfoot walking away, the one that,
the Patterson footage.
Yeah. And they're doing that and they're showing it and they're like, breaking it down frame by frame. They've brought it into a program that, has turned it from the, 320 to, 8 millimeter, whatever it was they took it on, into like 4K. And, you can see it real well, but, still it's obviously it's upscaled. So a lot of the stuff you're seeing, it isn't actually there. It was just guessed. And, and they're breaking it down. They're like, oh, see right here how he walks and he doesn't, no man can walk that way, even if they tried. And you can, you see right here where the folds, it's a female. So you see the breast and the folds over here and it's all, it's real how it does it. And then it cuts to like a costume expert. And they're like, well, no, we do that all the time. You see people walk like Bigfoot all the time, just mimicking that. And you're like, oh, that's Bigfoot because they're walking like it. And also, it's clearly a gorilla suit that they took and changed the head. They put something on top of the head to make it look even weirder. And they even have the guy who was, claimed to be in the footage who was Bigfoot. Yeah. So I don't get that anyway. But
at the time, for whatever reason, even though these stories and sightings have been going on for decades, for whatever reason, it coalesced in the 70s. And it was like every pseudo science, whatever, ancient astronauts, which I won't even get into it. The fact there's a show now about it, but be that as it may, that stuff was big. And so they were taking it and made a kids show based around Bigfoot. Yep. And what was the big thing? It had a sound it would make, and it would leap in the air, like 8 feet in the air or something.
Yeah. It was like, and they'd run. So everything was just copped from $6 Million Man. So
Yeah.
whenever they'd run, it was in slow motion, and they'd play like whatever sound effect behind it to make you think this must be what it sounds like when you run fast, and it was all those tricks where you put the camera on the ground and he would jump over it and have his hands in the air like he's falling 50 feet kind of thing. And Bigfoot was played by a guy named Ray Young, who was 6'6". So I mean, that's a big guy, right? But that's not like Bigfoot,
No.
So they're still having to shoot him from, way down low. And I noticed when I was going over seeing like, they'd have Wild Boy, who is shorter than, quite a bit shorter than Ray Young, but, they'd have it where he's closer to the camera and lean down. So it looks like, Bigfoot's 8.5 feet tall kind of thing. It's very memorable. It had the theme song was like, with, now that I think about it, it was kind of like the NFL films that they used to have.
So that was also one of the better themes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And told us the whole thing, and it was not a wacky fourth wall breaking show. This was more along the lines of a $6 Million Man or Dukes of Hazzard or something.
It was supposed to be like a action adventure kind of thing,
Yeah.
played straight for
Somehow.
for kids who are not worried about like that's a guy in a suit.
Right. Yeah. We knew,
I mean-
and they even had hair, obviously, like glued to his face. And to me, it was obviously a man, but that makes sense because he's not supposed to be a gorilla. He's supposed to be Bigfoot.
Right, he's supposed to be this missing link, supposedly.
Yeah, right.
There's a Band-Aid about. Oh, so what I wanted to get into was something I was reading in a synopsis where they said they often incorporated moral lessons and positive messages. And I'm thinking, no, I don't recall them doing that. But you know who did do that? Filmation.
Yes.
The Filmation stuff had the lessons and whatnot.
Yeah, like
So I think
like Shazam and stuff, and
yeah, Shazam,
ISIS.
What was the other big one at the time? I think even Tarzan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was
And-
always some message like, don't steal from your friends or anything. It was good messages. So
Yeah, but the Filmation was the one that they always made a point of having a moral lesson, but I don't think the Cross really did. So I think that's confusing the two.
yeah, because
Although Filmation that's some cool stuff too we could get into, but because they had some live action stuff and they had some zany live action, it was definitely reminiscent of Krofft. In
Yeah.
other words, like the Far Out Space Nuts.
oh yeah,
That was Filmation. That was not Sid and Marty Krofft. It was not Krofft
Right.
Productions.
I forgot. Yeah, that's
And they were also, with the budget and the green screens and the whatnots
Right.
at the time. It was like trying to use technology, but it wasn't really good technology.
no, but they were better at it because those shows were better done.
Yeah. Now, saying all that, it did make it easier for me to then start watching where I could find it back in the early 80s when I started watching some Doctor Who. I'm like, yeah, this stuff is like, they don't even care about making it look realistic.
No,
But I was okay about it because I'd already been seeing some of that kind of stuff from
Right.
Krofft and all. But yeah, anywho, so
And
there's
they
that
had-
aspect.
They didn't even have the budget of Sid and Marty Krofft for
No.
Doctor Who, so
No.
but they
No.
worked with it. So what's up next?
Well, after they got off the children's programming, they started actually getting into the prime time television.
Wait, you
Donnie
forgot the
Mar-
Lost Saucer.
Oh, you're right. I did forget the Lost Saucer. When did that one? When did that appear in the midst of all this?
I don't know, but it was 1975, so it was pretty early on because the rest of them were kind of like
Okay. Now, is that the one
76.
with Jim Neighbors?
yeah, and Ruth Buzzy.
Oh, okay. Yep. Sorry. Didn't mean to
It
miss
is
that one.
horrible, man, horrible. I watched an episode of it for this of what I could watch, and I was just like,
Yeah.
this is completely, totally unwatchable. In Riff Tracks or MST, they always said that people send them bad things. But just because it's bad doesn't mean that even professional comedians can make anything with it.
Right.
You couldn't do anything with this. Absolutely unwatchable, complete trash. The theme of it isn't I should say the theme. The plot isn't necessarily terrible, but the implementation is. So you have two friendly time traveling androids from 2369. I see what you did there, Sid and Marty. They're named Fee and Fum because why not? And they land their saucer on Earth in 1975. They encounter a boy named Jerry and his babysitter Alice, and they offer him, "Hey, we'll show you the inside of the craft." And when they do, the two bumbling fools they get taken off wherever they go, and their time controls are broken, and they don't know how to fix it. So they're trying to go. I guess you could almost say like in like sliders or something, right? Where it doesn't work, so you just go wherever you can go, hoping you'll land where you need to be. And
like Quantum Leap.
Yes, Quantum Leap, same kind of thing. And they want to get to their planet, fix it up, and they met their look-alike creators, Dr. Docker, played by Jim Nabors, and Professor Pringle, Ruth Buzzy, who's literally dressed as Gladys, the purse-wielding spinster that was on Laugh-In. Like, she uses that character here, basically. Just gave her a different name.
Got it.
I mean, it is...
Wasn't that character also turned into like a cartoon, baggy pants and the nitwits or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I watched this show, and I know that Jim Carrey couldn't save this. This was so horribly written. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
I have like literally no recollection of that one.
Yeah,
I really don't. I did see a little clip, like the intro to it, and I'm like, I should remember this, but it's somehow, I don't know if they just didn't show it here, because a lot of these things were syndicated, you know.
It was definitely memorable, and because I remembered it. I didn't remember all the specifics, but I remember Ruth Buzzy and Jim Nabors, and like in their outfits, which are like white, sort of metallic, and they have, because they're androids, and so they have like these big things on their chest and on their back. It's supposed to be like, oh, we can see the inside of your moving parts, kind of thing, and apparently each episode was supposed to be, this is one where you started talking about the social commentary, and I was reading the breakdown of it. It's like, oh, it talks about each episode has some kind of social commentary, and then I started reading it and I was like, what social commentary? So like one where they go to a colony where everybody's fat and lazy because they let robots do all the work. There's one where they're in a future time where people's names are replaced by numbers. So maybe on
the most like simplistic.
Yes, I mean, it's 1975. Are people really thinking we're going to be replaced by robots? You know, I don't think so. Not like that. Not like we're all going to have our own names we're no longer names. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And a place where technology is outlawed due to a global energy shortage. And I'm thinking, man, is this really social commentary? Because it was like before this they had Star Trek, the original series, which was definitely like actual social commentary. So,
right. Yeah.
I don't quite
very lazy. But they're simplifying it down because it was for little kids.
Well, I think they fell into that trap that people have fallen into, like before Harry Potter. You know, books for kids that age were kind of like, not quite see Dick run, but they just were really simplistic. And J.K. Rowling made Harry Potter, and she wrote the first one for 11-year-olds, and it has bigger words and scary plots, and it's an actual book. But yeah, I think that they just thought kids could, I don't know, maybe they were just lazy. So they had jokes like one time Jim Nabors sees something, it's like a big bone, and he goes, instead of what in God's name or something, it's like, what in the space is that? Everything they have would be like, oh, give me my space drink and my space straw, kind of thing.
Wow.
And it was supposed to be slapstick. Like I said, that vaudevillian, but vaudeville without talent, because vaudeville was incredible for a long time. And some of that still hits, but this is like knockoff of a knockoff of a knockoff of it. And so they had one where they have jets on their feet, so they take off and they're flying through the air, and Ruth Buzzy's like, what a great idea, you saved me. And then she kisses Jim Nabors, who was a notorious ladies' man, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And he mugs for the camera, like your closeted gay uncle, basically, is what he did. And he's like, wow, that's the first time you've kissed me. And he's all blushing, and he loses concentration and falls out of the sky. She literally turns to the camera with a, what you gonna do look on her face, and then pinches her nose and pulls her hand up and then acts like she jumps into a swimming pool kind of thing, towards neighbors. I turned it off. I was like, I can't watch any more of this drivel. It was
physics
horrible.
be damned. Yeah.
It was like everything you could possibly tell someone in Comedy 101. Everything that you could possibly come up with to say, do not do this. They did it all in this one show. So you probably saw every episode and then blocked it out to save your life.
I'm going to watch it now. I mean,
it's on a different level.
What have I got to lose?
Yeah, it's on a different level. So go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to get that one out of the way.
I think basically it was just getting towards the end of the 70s. They were doing some variety shows, Donnie and Marie and the Brady Bunch. And if you've ever seen any of those,
but I mean,
I'd help you.
Like the Brady Bunch and any of those kind of things around that time period were freaking 2001 Space Odyssey by comparison to these things.
Mm-hmm.
They were just put together plots that, the only thing that like those shows had is that they were so milquetoast. They didn't, like in the Brady Bunch once I remember Bobby was acting like a jerk. And I mean, he was just a total asshole.
Well, but this is like the variety show. This isn't even I'm talking about when they later did a variety show. That's
the one we watched where was it Greg busts his ass?
Yeah. Like they didn't even cut it out. You could actually see him falling on the roller skates.
Yeah. We were at VCU sitting and he's like, you got to watch this. And if I didn't love Maddie, the phrase, you've got to watch this 1970s Brady Bunch variety show with me. Normally I'd be like, can we watch something else? But we watched it. And then we're in a little bit of an altered state, perhaps, if I remember correctly. And
probably.
And we watched this thing, and the guy who plays Greg, they're all on roller skates, dancing and stuff and singing in a group, and he falls, and it shows like if the fall itself was 2 seconds, they showed 1.3 seconds of it. It was like enough to see that he was, whoops. I mean, it was no mistake what he was doing.
Yeah, they don't show the actual fall, but they showed pretty much the angle he's about to. Yeah,
unless he can fly, he fell.
Yeah, yeah, good editing.
Yeah, it was funny, man. And
so that's the kind of stuff they were getting into. And I think they also did the Bay City Rollers, which,
that would make total sense, because literally if I scroll up to my little feeble attempt on research here, I have in Wonderbug, I said the theme song sounds like a Bay City Rollers or Osmonds ripoff. And I mentioned that, and you were like, "Oh, because the Osmonds wrote the music.
The music for the
setup or whatever." And then they had something to do with the Bay City Rollers. Crazy, man.
Yep, because I think Puff and Stuff or one of their characters would make an appearance on there. I never really watched much of it because I was like, "Ugh,
yeah, it's horrible."
Yeah, because it was all that pop, whatever. It was like more of the girls' variety show. I think.
A Tiger Beat kind of shit.
Yeah, exactly. I was going for that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That was the market they were going for.
Yeah, I got no problem with it. Just like they, like Knight Rider and stuff like that was really marketed towards boys. I got no, it's an audience.
So it was just like, that was the thing. So probably because of that, I'm like, because I don't want to hear Saturday Night again. Anyway,
T-U-R-T-A-Y night.
Yes,
my sister had that.
But they were huge. I mean, it was right for them to try to get in on that, because those guys were freaking enormous.
Yeah,
in their short period of time.
Right. I was going to say for about 6 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, for for that 1 year, it was Bay City Rollers everywhere.
They were on Tiger Beat. They were on Beat the Tiger. They were on Beaty Tigerish.
Yeah, they were on Tartan and
GQ.
Tartan Beat and
Tartan Beat. Yeah, that's the one from Scotland, right?
Yeah. But it was apparently a big trend at that time, like wearing tartan socks and everything, because girls were getting into the whatever.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
I do, because I lived through it. My sister, she's 2.5 years younger, but she had, like I said, Tiger Beat, all those teen things up there. And then, of course, when it got into the 80s, that was replaced with like Motley Crue and stuff like that. So
yeah. But in the late 70s, it could be like, Paul Stanley's just sitting here thinking about you.
Right, yeah. How to make Leif Erikson, not Leif Erikson, he was the Viking. Leif Garrett. How to make, or Leif Erikson, I guess, how to make Leif Garrett care about what you think or whatever. It's like stupid crap. It's like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days kind of thing, only that's brilliant. And so, I mean, that's a brilliant movie. So, but it's the same kind of thing where they have
like always giving advice,
articles on how
to get boys, how to keep boys.
Yeah. What Greg Avagon does when he's not playing with his monkey.
And the other monkey,
the other or the chimp.
Yeah.
And what's weird is that a lot of those Tiger Beat things. I mean, Greg Avagon was in his 20s, and so was Rick Springfield. They were on there all the time, but it's money, right? They need that audience there, but Rick Springfield's like 25 and he's on Tiger Beat.
So I just feel like who wrote the copy for that stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, probably not even anyone associated with them. I'm probably, it was like, hey, we want to do a piece. We want to write this thing with you and we'll take care of it. You okay with that? Yeah. Just approve the photo. You just basically approved the photos and that was about it.
Yeah. Well, we won't pay you, but we'll put it in this magazine that has a circulation of 500,000, and we won't give you any money, but people will see your name. Well, it won't be your name. We'll change the name, of course, but in the credits, we'll have we'll have a special thank you to you for that.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find that equitable, and maybe they got the okay to do it, or maybe they didn't.
It was targeted towards 14 and 15-year-old girls, which means that it was probably mainly purchased by 12 and 13-year-old girls. And because they wanted to be like the older girls, so they would buy the things meant for the older girls, and the older girls didn't care about that crap.
And trust us, we know. It's like, sure, we're experts. We know what girls want.
Yeah.
50-some-year-old guys here.
Yeah.
Where would be the feminine viewpoint? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just stop.
You're going to like Rick Springfield. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah. So anyway.
We're at the age now where if we created a show, it would probably be so out of touch with everybody, just like the comedy and the Krofft Superstars and whatnot.
Yeah.
They'd be like, I can't believe these guys are using the term bad for something they find out to be cool, which we don't use cool anymore. So,
you have one of those. You've got one of those translator wheels.
Yeah, it doesn't just translate accents or whatever languages. It translates, chrono sayings and whatnot. This is what they were saying in the 30s.
Yeah, it just does for each generation.
Yeah,
hep, cool.
Yeah,
bitchin',
33 skidoo, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah, right.
Whatever the kids say now, I don't know.
Yeah. Give me a C, a bouncy C.
Give me a C, a bouncy C. Yeah, when I was a kid, we didn't have, what was the Dana Carvey was like, when I was a kid, we didn't have these video games. We would go outside together and chew the bark off of trees. And we liked it. We loved it. Yeah. So anyway, so to wrap up the Sid and Marty Krofft Superstars, which do us a favor. Here's the gist of it, I think. And Matty Man, straighten me out if I'm wrong here. If you have any interest at all in seeing any of these things that we've talked about, they're on YouTube, and you can watch 20 seconds of each one of these shows. Each one of them, 20 seconds, and you will know everything about that show, why it was so trippy, and why people thought they were on drugs, and why it was so dumb, but yet we somehow watched it because that was all we had.
And I will say, any adults watching this with us, I really got to give them a lot of props now for their patience they must have had.
Oh, yeah, God.
To just sit there and not just rip it to shreds the entire 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, like I said, I can't watch. Some of these I started watching literally 30 seconds to like a minute. And I'm like, all right, I get it.
Yeah, I just have newfound respect for my grandparents, because I remember actually one Thanksgiving, we were at my dad's parents, And I remember we're all sitting in the den watching Krofft Supershow. God only knows why. Why that was even showing on a Thursday, but it must have had a special or something. Must have been showing it because they needed to put something on the air.
Right. Yeah. Something that
And I
they'd
just
already
remember
paid
we're all
for.
watching that and thinking, I'm loving it, but now looking at it years later, I'm like, how the hell did everybody just sit there and watch that shit?
It had to be hell on earth for them.
Yeah.
It is
just so we could watch that. Like, why wouldn't they be on me? Like, okay, we're not watching this.
They love you. That's why.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
the love they must have had for
my mom took me to see Kiss
Bodine
in 1979. So I mean, that was my first concert. She couldn't give two shits about Kiss whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's a place that she's taken her 10-year-old kid to see Kiss and people smoking pot around me and all this stuff. And, she did it because she loved me. So whenever I think about a mother's love, I think about that because that definitely had to be it.
Yeah, good point.
Except for Land of the Lost. If you are someone who can handle the fact that if you're into storytelling and things being inventive, and so forth, creativity, Land of the Lost, while extremely cheaply made, especially by today's standards, it is fascinating. It is really cool.
Right. That was the one that was solid. Like I say, the production values, shaky, but
I've seen
the story
it, like, in
and the
last 2
concepts
years
and everything
on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it was like, I just remember thinking, wow, this is really, they're really out there, man, but not like trippy, they're on drugs kind of out there. I mean, really conceptually, it was, even as a kid, it was fascinating. I had no problem tracking everything that was going on. But as an adult watching it, I'm like, man, this is really cool. This is really cool story. This is way advanced for the rest of their stuff.
So if you really want to get back to, okay, Sid and Marty Krofft, they have a legacy. What do we really get from them? And I think we get more thoughtful sci-fi programming for sure.
Yeah,
came from that. Wouldn't have been there had it not been for the success of that.
You can hear, you can see interviews with other writers and some video game people and stuff that are all around our age, and a lot of times they'll mention things like, oh yeah, I got this from Krofft Superstar. And if you did look up stuff from Double Fine, that's the name of the company. Tim Schafer's the guy that runs a video game company, and he would have fit right in to HR Puff and stuff. It would have absolutely made total sense to him. And he's a very influential creative in that industry, and which of course means it bleeds over to other industries because video games are the biggest industry. So they definitely had a lasting impact on Gen X. We were, we're not just finding obscure stuff to talk about in a podcast about Gen X. This wasn't really that obscure at all.
Oh yeah. That particular, at least the 70s. I mean, they were all through the 70s.
Yeah. You could, if you were a kid, you couldn't escape them. We had 3 channels, but everybody saw it when you got home from school. And on Saturdays, usually Saturdays they play the newer stuff or whatever I didn't see, but the weekdays there was time periods where they would have, where you come home from school and 3:30 to 4 they'd have Krofft Superstars.
Right. And then in Saturdays, I mean, Land of the Lost, they did repeats of that for years.
Yeah. I loved it whenever, like I said, whenever the Krofft Superstars Super Show, whatever it was, would come on. I'd hear Marshall, Will, and Holly, it was like, yeah. And if it was literally any of the rest of them, it was like, turn it.
Yep, that was the one. Now, there was a 90s version of Land of the Lost, which I never bothered to see because I'm like, I don't want to see anything that's got decent effects.
Right. And they're not focusing on the right things, right? They're not focusing on the creativity that those people did. They're focusing on how can we make it look cool. And then they had the one with Will Ferrell, the movie that came out, and it had nothing to do with it. I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing. I just saw parts of it, but I'm like, this is
I saw
terrible.
Parts of it too.
He took it, and in his mind, he's like, oh, it's Sid and Marty Krofft, and it's kind of a goofy show, and there was nothing goofy about the show.
Right.
Certainly didn't try to make it goofy.
Nope. The only thing I say, the thing that would trip you up is if you were watching it and you would just have a hard time getting around some of the really bad effects.
Yeah, it's really...
The foam, T-Rex, whatever. But the point is, pay attention to the story.
Yeah. and the creativity. I mean, it's really high concept kind of stuff, and it's very well done. So if you only watch one thing by Sid and Marty Krofft, let it be Land of the Lost, because that's the one that's actually, if you watched old Star Trek, the original Star Trek with Kirk and all that, and you see the original ones with their special effects, which were a lot better than the special effects they had in Land of the Lost, but it's the stories and over the top acting and stuff. This didn't even have over the top acting.
Yeah, this was actually they played it straight, so it holds up in many ways. Yeah. You just give the effects a pass.
Yeah, just it doesn't matter. You'll like it if you check it out. Yes. It's no big deal, because there's lots more stuff on the internet from the past that we're going to be telling you about as time rolls on and we do more of these podcasts.
Yes, we will do more. We promise.
Yep, we already know. I think we talked about what our next thing is, and I've forgotten already because I'm 55 years old.
Oh, you talking about the after-school specials? You wanted to do one of those deals?
We were going to do one of those, and there was something else I sent you the other day. But either way, it doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. And until then, he is Matty Man.
And he's Vanny Boy.
And you're listening to The Rusty Playground. Peace out.
Peace.
Sid and Marty Krofft, two wacky brothers who knew a thing or 20 about puppets. No, not Muppets. That's another kind of weird. And how to creep you out with green magicians, talking hats, chubby dragons, and a world of hats, living hats. Yeah.